Welcome to the League. This is Real Takes with Major League, where I break down today's headlines and give you the takes that actually matter. Today, we're talking about J.D. Vance's stint as a podcast host. We shine a light on 2 lynchings that happened in Mississippi in the last 24 hours, and the free speech crackdown in the light of Charlie Kirk's death. Let's get started. The ink isn't even dry on the obituary, and J.D. Vance is already positioning himself as the de facto leader of Charlie Kirk's fan club.
If it weren't for Charlie Kirk, I would not be the Vice President of the United States. And I think about that a lot. I thought about that a lot over the last few days. I mean, other than the president himself, Charlie was maybe the most important person in both getting us across the finish line, but actually getting me the nomination to begin with. It was his grassroots army. It was his advocacy that I think made me a credible selection for VP in the first place.
Let's get one thing straight right off the bat. They don't care about Charlie Kirk. They care about his people. They care about his movement. They are focused on pushing their own culture war. They're using this tragedy as a stage prop. They're framing everything as like an attack on America rather than an actual murder investigation. This is what happens when you put podcasters in charge of the FBI. But this is also what happens when you put grifters at the head of the government. One of the things I talked about recently is how J.D. Vance is trying to position himself as the heir apparent to Trump. And he has a pretty tough job in front of him because, you know, Trump is a lot of things, right? A lot of things that people hate, but he's very charismatic to his people. His people love him because they like his energy. They like what he represents. J.D. Vance is where charisma goes to die. He doesn't have a fraction of the charisma as Donald Trump, and he knows it. So to set himself up to be heir apparent to Trump, he knows that he has to take a good group of Trump's followers to follow him. And being exactly who he is, he saw the opportunity to capitalize on the death of Charlie Kirk by being the heir apparent to him first. And, you know, if you study a little bit of their actions, you study the campaigns of 2020 and 2024, you know this is right in their playbook. Capitalize on every crisis. Capitalize on every death, every flashpoint. And what's obvious with this is, like, you know, he's not mourning. He is monetizing. He is taking advantage of this crisis. They haven't even buried this man. They haven't even buried Charlie Kirk. He is already on his podcast, interviewing his friends, trying to take over the position that Charlie Kirk left open. Grifters won't even let the casket drop before they try to cash in. This was not J.D. Vance grieving the loss of his friend. This was not J.D. Vance grieving the loss of Charlie Kirk. This was J.D. Vance capitalizing on the situation to gain his support and position himself as the next president. As part of his all-star grift hour, J.D. Vance had on Trump's right-hand ghoul, Stephen Miller. And they chopped it up about how they plan on using Charlie Kirk's death to stifle free speech and attack their political opponents.
I wanted to zoom out with Stephen a little bit and talk about all of the ways that we're trying to figure out how to prevent this festering violence that you see on the far left from becoming even more and more mainstream. A lot of people are very worried about how we got here in the first place. And you have the crazies on the far left who are saying, oh, Stephen Miller and J.D. Vance, they're going to go after constitutionally protected speech. No,
they quite literally are.
The NGO network that foments, facilitates, and engages in violence. That's not okay. Violence is not okay in our system, and we want to make it less likely that that happens. Walk me through, at a high level, like what you and I have been working on, what the whole administration has been working on to try to make sure that we don't reward and promote this craziness.
The organized doxing campaigns, the organized riots, the organized street violence, the organized campaign dehumanization, vilification, posting people's addresses, combining that with messaging that's designed to trigger and incite violence, and the actual organized cells that carry out and facilitate the violence. It is a vast domestic terror movement. And with God as my witness, we are going to use every resource we have at the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and throughout this government to identify, disrupt, dismantle, and destroy these networks.
Make no doubt about it. Every accusation is an admission with these guys. Everything Stephen Miller just talked about, they are actively doing. They are stifling free speech. They are right-wing billionaires are funding riots, are funding protests like January 6th. They dox left-wing activists and they fund political violence. The speed at which they use their supposed friend's death to further their own political aspirations should be studied. The utter lack of empathy to use and take over your friend's show just to promote your own agenda is absolutely breathtaking. Make no mistake about it. They're not demonstrating leadership. This is grifting 101. Unfortunately, at this point where we are in America, the news gets worse and worse every day.
Officials have released the identity of a student who was found on a campus hanging from a tree this morning. Campus officials and police made the announcement just a couple of hours ago in a news conference. 16 WAPT's Ross Adams live in the studio this afternoon. He's been following the story at Delta State all day. Ross, what are investigators saying?
Well, Troy, we are just hours into the investigation of this disturbing discovery on the Cleveland campus. Now, here is what we know right now. According to the Delta State Police Chief, they got a call around 7 o'clock Monday morning. First officers on the scene found the body of 21-year-old DeMartravion Trey Reed. He was hanging from a tree near the pickleball court that's in the central part of the campus. Reed is a Delta State student from Grenada. Now, there is already rampant social media speculation about what happened to Reed. At this point, investigators say there is no evidence of foul play.
Black people don't lynch themselves. Black people don't lynch themselves. Just to add some context here, in the light of the murder of Charlie Kirk, HBCUs across the country have been on high alert. They've received bomb threats. They've received death threats almost every day, even after the suspect in the Charlie Kirk murder has been identified as another white man from Utah. This did not happen in a vacuum. Throughout history, it has been consistently shown that every time white America is angry, black people get hurt. I think it's obvious, and everyone with two eyes can see that this kid did not hang himself. He did not hang himself in the middle of campus. History tells us what a black body hanging from a tree in Mississippi means. And if the symbolism of that wasn't clear enough, it happened again this morning.
For you at this hour.
Yeah, Vicksburg police say a man was found dead hanging from a tree this afternoon. Police say the discovery was made in the woods on Washington Street near one of the casinos in Vicksburg. Captain Curtis Judge identified the victim as Corey Zucatis of Brandon. Now, police say right now the case is being classified as a death investigation. No other information is being released at this point.
Lynchings are always about sending a message, using fear as control. And that's exactly what this looks like. I said it before, and I'm going to repeat it until my lungs can no longer carry air. The number one perpetrator of violence in America, historically and currently, has always been right-wing, angry, white men. American history is absolutely littered with stories of their violence and terrorism against anyone who does not look like them. The FBI data confirms this. Domestic white supremacists drive the vast majority of terrorism since the inception of this country. We can't let them rebrand terror as a tragedy. We're going to call it exactly what the fuck it is. This is a lynching. They want anyone standing against them living in fear, and now apparently they want them jobless too.
Harsh critics of Charlie Kirk are looking for new jobs. Cobb County Schools has placed an unknown number of employees on leave after officials said the workers made comments on social media about the conservative activist who was killed last week. Other organizations are making similar moves regarding comments made about Kirk's death. Atlanta-based Delta Airlines suspended employees for their social media posts. Children's Healthcare of Atlanta went a step further and fired an employee for what they said online. Tonight, Atlanta News' first Alani Latang is live outside Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and Alani has spoke with an expert who told you the First Amendment doesn't always give people the right to say what they want about a person.
That's right, Blair. People can say what they want, but they face those consequences that you just listed off. But here in Georgia, employers also have First Amendment rights, and that means they're allowed to terminate or punish any employee they feel said something problematic or that just didn't align with company values.
There's currently a database of 20,000 some odd names floating around the internet of people that have said anything critical of Charlie Kirk since his death. Now, mind you, these are the same people that have been crying for years about cancel culture. Free speech apparently ends the moment you criticize somebody they like. They've built careers on mocking the left for accountability, but this is their version of the censorship. Also, I want to be clear on this. Companies, corporations, organizations are complicit. They are bending the knee to this type of censorship, the censorship of free speech. They are bending the knee to the Trump administration. They are bending the knee to extremists. If corporations, organizations, employers are scanning this list and searching for their employees who may be on it, they are silencing dissent, and they are proving that power matters more than principle. If only approved voices get a platform, that's not free speech. That is almost the definition of authoritarianism. And this probably comes as absolutely no surprise to the vast majority of people who've been paying attention to politics over the course of the last 30, 40 years. But they don't want free speech. They want obedience. They want people to believe exactly what they believe, or they want you to shut up. All right, that's it for me. Thank you so much for joining us today with Real Takes with Major League. Drop your real takes in the comments. And don't forget, like, follow, and share, and join the conversation.